Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Jay Rana Show, brought to you by the Titan Union. If you want to have an event, make sure you come down here, as always. Today, I have the pleasure and privilege of not having a wedding vendor, but a client of mine. Now, different vantage points, different focuses. Let me introduce Annika Sharma. Annika, what's up?
Hi, it is so nice to see you. I haven't actually seen you since our wedding reception.
That's crazy to even talk about. I mean, we say connected online, which is fantastic,
yeah.
right? Because you're a dear friend of mine. But it's crazy how like all of the vendors, they become friends with their clients, and then we don't see each other until years, but we're still connected because of social media.
Yeah, absolutely. It's amazing. I love keeping up with everything that you're doing.
I
and
appreciate
all the changes.
that.
And it's been really fun. I think the vendors that we had, and I'm sure we'll get into it, the vendors that we had were so amazing that I keep in touch with most of them. Or I'll just text them randomly and say, I saw that wedding decor, ours is better, that you did for us. And you know this because I go to weddings and I'll text you after and say, man, the music, I wish we had you again, or they could have used you this time.
I appreciate that. You know, we get that all the time.
Yeah.
I don't understand why it happens. The thing is this, like when I work with my clients, right, I give 100% of myself. All the vendors that you choose, you become friends. Mm-hmm. Now, that means you're also biased as well.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I'm sure that client, the party you went to, they love their vendors, they had the phenomenal time. But now when they go to other weddings, they'll text them too.
Yeah.
I wish we had you at our event,
Yeah.
at this particular event, because you build that relationship, you know. I'm all about building my relationship with my clients because you become friends.
You really do. I mean, you're putting the event that's probably one of the most important, if not the most important in your life, in that person's hands.
The most important day of your life.
So yeah, absolutely. That amount of trust that you put in. I mean, that's not what you usually put in to most of your relationships.
Yeah.
It's actually an immense amount. So
the trust in your vendors versus the trust in your everyday life. Sometimes even the trust you have in your significant other. Mm-hmm. You know, with that you can play around with them. And if you're mad at your significant other on a Tuesday, you'll be okay. You'll be mad at them the following week, which is fine, you know, because you'll eventually get out of it. But if you're upset with your vendor on that day, that's gonna change your whole shift, your whole mindset on the whole event. Whether it's your photographer, your DJ, your MC, your planner, if you don't have full trust in them on that day, and say, you know what, I trust you, do what you want, and if you hold on to that little thing at the back end, doggy.
That's totally true, though. I didn't think about it that way. But the other part of that, I think, is also just the fact that a vendor has to play so many roles.
Right.
I think a client doesn't always realize until afterward when everything has sunk in and they're like, oh, they mediated that fight between the two families about that one thing that like nobody could agree on.
Right.
Or like we couldn't figure out how to enter and they needed to use all of their expertise to pull it together. And, you know, all of these different moments of, you know, peacefulness or all these moments of like collaboration that come through on your wedding day that the vendors have to do that we just don't realize until much later because we're just like, oh yeah, they're just problem solving. They're doing their job. But you just don't realize it until much later. Like, oh man, they really actually solved a lot of problems.
Therapist.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Weddings bring out a lot of really like crazy things. They just bring out a lot of layers for everybody.
And emotions.
And it can be like really great stuff. And it's also sometimes really deep-seated like sadness or really, oh, I miss this person and they should be here. Or, you know, this didn't work out the way I wanted, or I always wanted this for my wedding and I'm not getting it, you know, and all of these different things. And so there's a lot of different roles you have to play, I think.
Right, but you can't really live in hindsight, right?
Yeah.
Like I should have, would have, could have at that point.
Yeah.
You're on the dance floor with your husband, Sanjeev, right?
Yeah.
Sanjeev is here with your daughter.
Yeah.
Right? Fantastic, by the way. You know, I love to see my clients afterwards as a full family. Like, oh, I was there before you were even a figment of their imagination.
Yeah, like they were maybe vaguely talking about you someday, but like here you are, and now you're actually the four of you or three of you together. Yeah.
So when you're dancing with your fiance and your husband on the day of the event, you take a look around, right? Those emotions, like, do you want to? I feel like some clients, they get lost in that particular moment in time, and some clients, they're still thinking about what's next. Okay, so after the first dance, we're going to go into the cake cutting. What am I going to say to this? What am I going to talk about this? Who am I going to thank? And so forth and so on. I feel like if that's what you're going to be doing, you're losing that moment in time, that particular memory. How was it for you?
I remember our dance really well because it wasn't like this. I mean, the song was very romantic, and I know that a lot of people from photos and things like that were crying when they were watching it, but he and I, when you look back at the photos, are laughing a lot because we were actually talking about not just the wedding. I was making jokes about this, that, and the other. I remember even at our wedding, which was a year prior because we had a pandemic wedding.
Gotta love pandemic weddings.
It was wild. It was wild. I'm sure we can dive in. There's a lot to unpack there. But with the wedding, there's a photo that everyone's like, "Oh, you guys look so like cute. Look, you've been talking the whole time." And I remember distinctly, Sanjeev's fantasy football team had beat mine that week. I won the league that year, but that was the one game that I had lost was to him the week that we got married.
Okay.
So on the mandapam, we're sitting there, and he's in the middle of a puja, and he's like, "Oh, the emotion." He whispered to me, "The emotion's really starting to get to me." And I said, "Hey, remember that time that you got married and you beat your wife in fantasy football the week that we got married?" And he started laughing, and they snapped the photo right then. And it's one of our favorite photos from the wedding. And it was the same kind of emotion, I think, that transferred to our dance and let us stay in the moment was just the fact that you just connect with your partner in some way that means something to you. So whether it's talking about football or whether it's saying, "Oh my gosh, did you see what that person was wearing?" Or like, "I have to tell you the craziest thing that happened." So we were laughing in all of our photos, and that is actually the most kind of, it's just the best depiction of us as a couple as well. It's just the two people that can always laugh.
That's the best way.
And so, yeah, it was great. So that's what I remember the most. I don't think we was like, what's next? I remember afterward getting shuffled around a little bit, and it was like I forgot everybody I wanted to thank in my speech.
That happens all the time.
Yeah, everybody. And I should have written it down, and I didn't because I'm usually really good at speaking publicly and remembering everything. But apparently, under the lights, it didn't quite work the way I wanted it to.
Was it stressful for you?
It wasn't so stressful. I think that it was moving so quickly that I didn't even realize. You get so lost in the moment.
It happens all the time. It's like a snap of a finger and you're done.
I remember you announcing the dances and saying, "Okay, now it's cake cutting," or now it's, this speech. And it's everything that we've talked about. I am the one who planned half of that or in that order, and we talked about this.
Right.
But it just went so quickly that by the time it was like, "Okay, well, you both come up and give your speeches. They just want to say a couple words." I was like, I don't remember what my words are. I should have thanked a couple of people, especially because, like I said, it was a pandemic. My aunt had gone shopping for all of my clothes in India and shipped them because I couldn't go there and do anything. And she also shipped clothes for 30 people as gifts.
Wow.
She shopped in the middle of this just global pandemic where everyone was wearing masks in India, where they would have to reserve times at certain places to be able to go shopping in the first place because these stores were closed. Yeah. And I missed the opportunity to thank her.
Did you thank her afterwards?
I have thanked her profusely pretty much every single time since we've spoken.
You can thank her on the podcast too if you want.
Yeah. And she's so special to me, and I've seen her since, and she's one of my favorite people on earth, but it was just in that moment, it was just going so quickly that I missed it. And that's one of those things that, whenever people say like, "Gee, were you in the moment or were you thinking about other things?" I wasn't really thinking about what was coming next, but I think that's what shook me is how quickly it came anyway.
Yeah. So it happens all the time. When I talk to my clients about just getting lost in the moment, don't worry about the timeline. Yeah. You hired professionals to do it. I was there. We ran the whole event for you. Just enjoy every single moment because you're never going to get it back. Yeah. I'm sure I told you this. I told my clients, months and months of planning, the snap of a finger is gone.
It is so fast.
A snap of a finger is gone.
So fast. I still remember the final songs. You said, "Okay, well, the dance floor is closing." And I was like, "I'm sorry, what?" We've been on the dance floor over 3 hours. And, it was just one of those things where I couldn't even believe it was midnight or, whatever time at the time it was. And it has just gone, it just went so quickly. It really does go so fast. So from having
the wedding, a pandemic wedding, and you're also an author. I got 2 of your books right here. These are fantastic books. So let me ask you a question about Aeon. Is it Aeon?
Ion.
Ion?
Yeah.
The reason I ask is because my son is a Sayan.
Sayan, yeah.
So it's Sayaan.
Yeah.
Ion, Ayaan.
Yeah.
So me and my wife were just trying to figure out, is it Sayan? Is it Aeon?
Yeah.
Let me ask Annika what it is.
Yeah, it's Ion for the second book. The 2 main characters are Payal and Ion. And then the first book is Kiran and Nash because it's interracial.
Right. Yeah. So both of the books are love stories.
Yeah.
The nice books, the great books, love stories. And you got married, right? So how do you depict the whole love story concept with your wedding? Was it everything that you wanted? Like, how did these books come into fruition?
I think that the books themselves were Well, they were pitched as a 3-book deal where they focus on a group of 4 friends, and each
So
of
one
them.
book. So one more is coming out.
One more is coming out. I just turned it in 2 weeks ago, actually.
Nice.
So so each there's 4 friends in this group, and each book focuses on a different love story and a different way of meeting someone, and how they fall in love in their entire journey together, which I think is half the beauty of hearing love stories in the first place. That's where I always find just the most joy, is hearing about how people met, how they fell in love in the first place, and what made them fall in love. Like, what was it that you looked at your partner and just thought, yeah, this is it. Okay. This is end game now. Because everyone falls in love multiple times. Usually people fall in love multiple times in their life, right? But when you write a romance, you have to think, okay, this has to be end game for these 2 characters at the end of it. So what is it that gets them there in the first place?
The family drama behind it?
Yeah, basically all of that too. And I think, and like surviving it.
Right.
And then
if you could survive family drama, you're good.
Yeah.
You're in a good place to be.
100%.
Because I was looking at it, and the business behind Ayan's family, or
Biles family and Ayan's family. Right. Yeah, it's like a fake engagement / It's
a Bollywood movie, you know that, right?
It basically is similar to a Bollywood movie. Yeah. Okay. There's like multiple Bollywood movies layered into it, which I think a lot of Indian writers get to do, which is really fun. We get to write these like outlandish stories that, Indian people, but also white people think are really funny and crazy and wild.
They could be as far outlandish as you want it to be, right?
Yeah.
Crazy, out of the norm stuff that non-South Asians will look at it and be like, this is not real.
Yeah.
But it's our reality.
Yeah.
And that's crazy to me.
Yeah.
I feel like when family gets involved, it becomes like our norm. That's our norm. Well, listen, my mom doesn't like you, but my dad does. My sisters has a problem with you. My brothers love you. All these little things, and you figure it out. But that's our normal.
Yeah.
Right? Think about what I just said. Yeah. All that family conflict, that's our normal. If non-South Asian and white people and non-Indian people were able to see this, they're like, yo, this is toxic as hell.
Yeah.
But it's not toxic for us.
Yeah.
How do you explain that? I can't explain that.
I think that there's a certain amount of, I think everybody has a toxic family on some level, right? Like no family is perfect. Everybody's got some layer of something going on.
Facts.
So it just looks different from family to family. And there's always something relatable amongst the two, amongst them when you're storytelling, especially. So, here it might be a business merger going wrong because these 2 people are like, I hate you and I don't really want to be with you. But I also kind of, I'm really weirdly attracted to you and I don't know what to do about it.
Yeah.
But, you also have stories like that all the time in families that are not South Asian. You have, maybe not a merger, but you have, think about celebrity stories, or you think about, I don't know, if you read enough about, say, the Kennedys.
Okay.
Like, the Kennedy family has enough drama to last all the generations from the 50s onward.
Yes.
And it's still a news.
So much more.
Yeah, and so much more.
Right.
So, if you look at that, they have it too. It's just might look slightly different, but I think that's at the end of the day what everyone finds is there's this human experience that they read in these books. And I don't think they necessarily judge Indian culture or brown culture and they're like, oh, that's the worst. I think everyone's like, oh man, that's so relatable. You guys are screwed up too? Great.
We're on the same boat.
Yeah, we're all screwed up. We're awesome.
Being screwed up is one thing, right? And figuring it out as a family, that's a whole other thing. I feel like, especially in our community, right? They have their hearts on their sleeves. They do. They're very forward with the way they think, their perceptions of other people. If my mom or my parents or somebody, they don't really like something that I do, they're the first person to tell me.
Yeah.
Or they would see someone that I'm seeing or talking to, first person to tell me, not really hide behind the scenes and just see how it plays out, right? I feel like that's what keeps the family structure, especially in the South Asian community, so strong, because they're not afraid to let you know how it is.
Yeah.
And that goes great into business as well, And as a bride, as a client, you would have the same concept with your clients, with your vendors, right? If some of your vendors said something to you that you didn't really agree with, would you step back and be like, you know what, maybe they know what they're doing? Or would you just be like, no, that's not what I want. I want A, B, and C. You're giving me X, Y, and Z. Fix it.
I think it depends on the vision I had and the logistics involved with it. Because, for example, I'll give a really good example. When we were talking with you about the entrance that we wanted to do, we had every wedding that we'd been to, the groomsmen entered, the bridesmaids entered, and then the couple enters, and everyone's seated. I had never seen everybody greet everyone along the sides of a dance floor before.
That's a Jay Rana special.
It's a Jay Rana special.
100%.
And I didn't know that. And so, but when I remember when we were discussing it, you were like, oh, I have, why don't we do this? And I remember just thinking that's so much better than anything I could have thought of. Because I actually love the fact that the photos show us like walking into all of our loved ones.
Yeah.
But that's not an idea I would have come up with on my own. So I think in that case, the vision that I had, you made it better. So in that case, you absolutely have to be like, oh yeah, totally. Just, you know what you're doing and this is gonna look way better than anything. So that's the moment that you offer your trust. But there was also a couple moments where for our wedding, one of the wedding planners that we'd initially had, I don't know if I don't think I spoke up enough, to be completely honest. I'm not sure I even understood exactly what a wedding planner does. Sanjeev, at the time, Sanjeev was the one who really wanted a wedding planner. Okay. And I was like, no, we got this. We totally did not have this. But he was like, no, I have this wedding planner in mind. And I said, okay, that's whatever you want, if it makes you happy and this is a hill you want to die on, that's fine, let's do it. But she had these really cool ideas to weave in the idea of me being a writer.
Right.
But I remember looking at the vision boards and just thinking like, but this doesn't look like me.
Okay.
These are a little bit too fairy tale-esque. Okay. And these aren't like brightly colored enough or, they're just not my vibe versus like they're kind of on the right track, but I also didn't know how to bring it back at the time because I wasn't sure exactly what to say or how to do it. And so I remember at the time being like, yeah, sure. And then eventually, because we ended up breaking our wedding and reception in two, because the pandemic just didn't get better, we ended up changing everything because she wasn't our wedding planner for a reception.
Right.
So by the time the reception came around, the design in our cake had changed, the design on a lot of the decor, the theme had changed. We didn't end up taking any of those ideas. And so I think, I wish I had spoken up a little bit earlier. It changed anyway, but I think it also depends on like, is this my vibe? Is it going to elevate what I was thinking of?
Vibes is so important. I feel like you have to relate to all your vendors.
Yeah.
If you don't connect in the first couple of conversations, that vendor is not for you.
Yeah.
There's so many different vendors with their own perceptions on what the perfect event is, right? Yeah. As a photographer, you know what? I think you should do A, B, and C because it'll look that way. Maybe you won't really agree with it. As a DJ, as an MC, I think you should do it this way. Maybe you won't really agree with it, right? You definitely have to speak up, because as a professional, we can contour. We can't step back and say, okay, well, talk to me about what you want. First thing I do is I just sit back and just listen. Talk to me about your full day. From the moment you wake up to the moment you go to sleep. How do you see it?
Yeah.
What do you see? Do you see your friends and family around you at all times? Some alone time for you to really understand what's happening, the moment in time that you're in, right? What do you see? Do you smell anything, right? Do you see colors? What type of music do you see yourself bouncing to, vibing to? Background music, What type of food do you see? There's so many different small things. I just had a caterer come in this morning, right? We're talking about a wedding that's gonna be coming in a couple of days. And we talked about planning a wedding, right? I run this whole space over here, in-house coordinator, all that good stuff. First question I ask all my clients is, what type of music do you want to dance to? If they're dancing to hip hop, R&B, if they're doing EDM, pop, that's going to determine what type of colors we're going to have inside. Mm-hmm. That colors is going to determine what type of cuisine we're going to have inside. So let me connect those dots for you. So we're like, okay, so what kind of music do you want? Because music is the easiest thing. Music is the easiest thing, right? The colors that you want, that'll play into it. They said, I want hip hop, R&B, perfect. So off the bat, what am I thinking? Now this may be a little bit not cool to say, but they wanted more barbecue, right? More Southern flavor. So that changed the whole theme of the catering itself. So so they wanted the hip hop R&B, that went into fried chicken, that went into like Southern fried foods, right? Passing hors d'oeuvres, that vibe. I had another client who's like, Jay, I want all Frank Sinatra, very classic, old school. Yeah. Perfect. That cuisine was more passing hors d'oeuvres. We're talking about like stuffed mushrooms, crab cakes, stuff of that nature.
Old time elegance.
Yeah, exactly. So the music is the easiest thing to think about, right? Small details, but that small, you can build off of that and work on the whole cuisine. Yeah. Because if you're gonna start with the food right from the jump start, oh my God, There's so many options. You don't even know where to start.
It's really overwhelming.
Yeah, it is overwhelming. Are you going to do American Italian? Are you going to do soul food? Are you going to do Mediterranean? Are you going to do Indian? If you're going to do Indian, are you going to do halal? Like, what are you going to do? You're going to do vegetarian? I can go on and on and on. So if you work backwards, like from the smallest detail, that's the easiest thing to worry about, is the color palette. It's the easiest thing to worry about, right? The music, you could build off of that.
Yeah.
And it just pulls everything together, right? The book that you wrote, I'm sure you have a vision board on how you come up with these stories, how they meet segment 1, 2, 3, and 4, all the chapters. Is that something that you also incorporated in the way you planned a wedding, the way you had the color palettes for your outfits? I'm sure you thought about all these things.
I did. I think that I do it with the books. The books have a vibe too. Each of the books have, 100%. And it's actually, the readers have described that as well. Like they'll say there's a vibe to her books, and I'm like, oh well, I wasn't actually going for that like specifically, but it's kind of funny that it turned out that way. But I think it is because you layer things on top of one another. And with the wedding, it was the same thing. I knew I've always wanted a fall wedding. I've always loved fall colors. I also love bright colors, so having to mix those two things. And then it also works better with my personality. I'm not quite a black and white.
I love your personality.
Thank you. I'm not like a very, I don't want to say I'm not an elegant, but I'm just not a black and white kind of person. So I wanted bright colors and pops of color. And I also come from a really traditional family, and I love that. Yeah. But I also love a little bit of touches of modernity. So our mandap is, to this day, my favorite one I've ever seen. We went with Abhishek Decor and Brian, and he understood exactly what I wanted, I think, from the get-go. I told him what kind of family I was from, and I remember telling him, he met my family, and then he realized we were Telugu. He realized like exactly how traditional we were, and that I wanted something with like a modern floral touch, like just flowers everywhere, but I also wanted something that looks like a temple. Yeah. But I don't want it to look like, like a lot of the different mandaps that I've seen over the last, I didn't want it to look like my friends' weddings. Right? Like, something that was just repeated and pulled. I wanted it to be very me, very us, and very fall. And that's exactly what we got. And I remember just being like having this vision for that. And when that came through, everything else lined up, because it was really easy to just kind of start putting other things in place. Yeah. I think that, the entire idea of, like you said, contouring and just kind of thinking of one thing and then kind of building out from it makes so much more sense.
Brian is good at what he does. He's very good at what he does because he has a lot of resources, number one, right? But he gets to, I bet you he had a conversation with you, right? Just like you said, talk to me about what you need, your personality, your family, and their needs. Because family also has their needs as well. It's your wedding ceremony, you and Sanjeev, but it's actually your parents' wedding ceremony.
Oh, it's totally my parents' wedding ceremony, yeah. And I think that, I loved, because I remember he just silently flipped through like, I don't know, 25, 30 pictures of just different mandaps.
While you guys were talking.
And while we were talking, and I remember all of us just being like, that one. And like, or, it happened like 2 or 3 times. We had like 2 or 3 favorites that all of us were like, whoa. And then it was like, okay, let's build color. And I remember the night before the wedding, they were building the mandap, putting in all the flowers. And I came into the ballroom, and there wasn't any yellow on it. And there wasn't really a lot of orange. And so it looked darker than I had envisioned. And I remember being like, I want you to put some yellow on it. And I was like, I don't know if you have it here. And we were in Mawa, and their studio is in Island. So it's like, it's a little bit of a drive. It's not terrible, but you have to get stuff from point A to point B. Yeah. And I was like, yellow flowers or orange, please? And he's like, don't you think it'll lighten it up? And I was like, please? And he was like, okay. And I remember the next day, he told me I should hire you, because the colors ended up working together really well, and they hit exactly what I wanted. And he's like, yeah, it came out better with the way that you were thinking about this. And I was like, and it was just so funny, because we worked as such a good team to be able to put that stuff together, and building all of that from, okay, this is the skeleton of the mandap that we wanted, with it looking like a temple, and then these are the flowers I liked, and then these are the colors of those flowers I liked, and just building, all of those things. It was just absolutely incredible. And then him adding little temple bells and little curtains. The devil's in the details. Yeah, exactly. Like he really nailed the entire vibe. And to this day, we still get compliments. And I put a review and a picture on Google, and multiple people have apparently asked specifically for our mandap from Ryan. And he's come back and he's been like, people are asking for yours specifically.
Because he designed it based on you.
Yeah. 100%. And it's just amazing. And
you should call it the Annika Mandap.
I really think that they should just name it after me.
They
It
should.
is gorgeous.
So
Sanjeev had no say in this, so it should be the Annika Mandap.
What did Sanjeev have a say in?
He was picky about the music.
Okay.
That was one thing, and food. Those are the two things. He's like, every wedding is made by music and food.
100%.
If he's just a firm believer that if the music is bad, people aren't going to vibe well, and they're not going to dance, and they're just going to feel off the whole night. If it's like, I don't know, let's just say it was like slower music all night and you can't really get on the dance floor and really just let loose, then you're not going to feel like it was a real wedding and a celebration.
Yeah.
And then food, because everyone remembers if you go home hungry, or if you had to order food afterward because you were not satisfied with the meal that you had.
White Castle afterwards.
Exactly. And so those are the two things that he really prioritized. And I told him he could have complete control. He also came in with a list, and I honestly love this about him and about grooms that do this. He came in with a list of things he'd seen at other weddings that he loved.
Right.
On an Excel spreadsheet.
Ready to rock.
Like ready to roll. When
Details.
we were like, okay, so he's like, what are you thinking about the wedding? And I was like, I mean, and he was like, here are my ideas. And he just lays down this like spreadsheet
this is what we're gonna do.
Of like all of these different preferences that he's had, things he's loved, things he's hated, weddings that he thought were just absolutely amazing, and ones that he thought, oh, this thing could have been better. Let's try to fix it in ours and make sure it doesn't happen. All of it. And the other thing with Sanjeev too is he never thought that he was going to marry a vegetarian girl who doesn't drink. So
So safe to assume he's a non-veg?
So he was. His family was non-veg, or they're kind of mixed. And then his family definitely drinks.
Okay.
And our family is like non-drinking, very strict vegetarian.
Okay.
Whose weddings are like 7 hours long, and his are like in and out, 1 hour. Let's go. Let's bang it out. So
what's his background?
He's also Telugu.
Okay.
We're both Telugu. His family is settled in Karnataka. Ours is like Hyderabad proper Telugu, like Telangana, and we are like a priest family, so we are very religious. And his family is not so religious. I mean, they respect it, but they're not like practicing, constantly having pujas, things like that. So trying to bring the two kind of, not necessarily extremes, but two very different families together. Yeah. They were really, really amenable. They just said, whatever you guys want is fine. And he's really respectful. So he was like, if you guys want a long wedding, let's just do it traditionally. It's fine. We're doing this once. Let's
do it. As long as
it's
on the second day.
It was, yeah.
Because the ceremony was on day one, and the reception was on day 2.
Reception was a year later, but reception would have been that night if we had kept it together.
Okay.
But because of
the
pandemic,
same length of the ceremony? Mm-hmm. I think, you sure? Because I think the ceremony was longer because it was just...
Yeah, we had a very early morning wedding. Like,
right.
It started super early. And so that way we could get it done maybe 5 hours and stuff, get it done around lunch, and then, have lunch and get ready and things like that, and then do the reception afterward. But I just remember the wedding itself was, it wasn't 7 hours. It was but it was 3 or 4. It was long. Yeah. It was long. So I remember us knowing we would have to start at like 7 in the morning.
I was in Virginia a few weeks ago for another wedding. It was a South Asian wedding, right? A South Indian wedding. Yeah. And they had the ceremony on day 1. It was 7 hours. It was an afternoon event, I want to say. So it started at like 5 p.m. We were there till like midnight.
My brother's wedding ceremony, the auspicious time was 11 p.m. on a Wednesday. And so he got married in North Carolina at 11 p.m. on a Wednesday. Yeah. And it went till 6 a.m.
Wow.
We were all of his friends showed up. They took like the whole week off to hang. And we went through the night, and then we had the reception. Like, we had the whole day to recover and everything, and then the reception.
You got to recover after that. I mean, you can't go
back
to that.
Yeah, it was just a whole break. Like, everybody met up for lunch if they wanted to, but it wasn't like there was no actual scheduled events in terms of things that we needed to rent or ballrooms or things we had to get ready for. It was like very, very chill that day, which you need. It's just because I looked at his schedule and I looked at ours, and I was like, yeah, ours was definitely a little bit shorter, but he made the right move for his in terms of giving people that break and just
100%.
giving people the chance to recoup and come to the reception like fresh.
Absolutely. So. Would you do it again?
Marrying Sanjeev? Yes, absolutely. The wedding, there's a couple things I might change, but it's very hard for me to figure that out because we got married peak pandemic. It wasn't even like 2021, 22, where the pandemic was this thing that was still there.
Yeah.
We got married October 2020, which the vaccine wasn't there. People were really scared. It was still really, really Emotions were heightened. Our family couldn't come from India. We couldn't go shopping there. Our wedding was supposed to be 525 people. It was 25 people.
I still can't believe 525 people.
520. Most of them were family too.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it was not like,
all here in the States?
I don't think everybody would show up. I don't think it would have been like a full, all of them would have been there, but the list was 525. And that was like cutting friends that like.
Were you all local, like in the States, or coming in from out of country?
India and the US. So it would have been probably, I would have at least anticipated 400 at our wedding if it had gone the way that we'd planned. And we planned like a 5-day event originally.
Yeah.
It ended up being a day. We couldn't even have like a full meal because it was just the pandemic risk was too high and COVID risk was too high. So I remember we did a high tea and we just got some really good desserts from Malay. Which that was clutch. I remember us doing that one special thing people still talk about. So that was really good. It's really hard for me to look back and say, oh, I would change a lot of things because it's so hard to like COVID was such a huge deal to all of us, right?
That changed the wedding itself or different parts of the wedding.
Yeah.
Which is having the wedding itself.
I'd still do it.
I'll give you an example. My sister and my brother-in-law.
Yeah.
They would not do it again. They're like, Jay, if I had an option to take that money because it was a financial thing at that point, right? Every decision is based on the finances. They're like, if I had to do it again, I wouldn't. I would take that investment into the wedding and put it into a house, put it into a business, put it into something that's going to come with an ROI.
Yeah.
Right? But to just spend it on that one particular day or that 1 week, they wouldn't do it again. A lot of my clients say the same thing. We wouldn't do it again because of the stress level behind it, which is huge. But then I'm thinking, what about the memories behind it? So what's more important to you, the stress level, the anxiety level, or the memories behind it?
I would 100% do it again. I would 100% do it again. The
That's
wedding was just, when I look back every time, despite the fact that it was during a really stressful time for everybody in the world.
Yeah.
And also the fact that we didn't even know if our wedding was happening until 6 weeks before. I don't know if you remember this or not, but the hotel was not sure they could reopen, and we didn't know what the guidelines looked like in New York or in New Jersey, and like the number of people we could have and all of that. We kept having to resend invitations and say like, sorry, we're pushing back, or sorry, we're not sure what's happening. And when I think back on it, yeah, it was smaller than we would have wanted. It wasn't exactly what we would have wanted in terms of like the size and the magnitude and like you said, how much money we would have put into it. But we saved a lot of money because we didn't have to spend so much on feeding 500 people for 5 days. Was that important
to you though?
It was for me because I think, well, not necessarily the number of guests, but I think like having my aunt and uncle there or having my grandparents there, that was the hardest part for me.
Right.
That is still to this day when we talk about our wedding, that's the thing I'm like, oh. That's the one thing I wish we could have changed. Yeah. Is just having the people from India, like the most important relatives from India, be there. Because I think the rest of it just taught me that you really can still make a day special, regardless of if it goes exactly how you imagined it or not.
It's a very special person to think that way.
Thank you. I wish my best friends were there. I wish everybody was there, but they just couldn't be. And I would have rather that they survived and were safe than come and put themselves at risk anyway. So there's no point in looking down this road where you're like, oh, like for the rest of my life, I'm going to be like, oh, well, they didn't come. They couldn't come. Right. It was a really bad situation. They missed it too. They missed it. We had 400 people on that feed. We had a live feed going of their wedding. There were 425 people at the peak of that watching our wedding. So it's like they were all there. They loved us enough to watch.
100%.
So,
what's not to love between you and Sanjeev? I'm talking, you guys are the best people out there.
Thank you. Yeah, it was just, and then I look back and I'm like, I remember you guys, all of you as vendors said, do not, because I thought there was a little phase where I was like, oh, should we downgrade the decor? Should we downgrade some of this stuff? Because no one's going to be there to enjoy it. Why are we spending all this money? And it was very much like, let's just do the bare minimum and get it done. Yeah. Sanjeev and I were getting older. Everyone's like, we just need to get them married. Like, that was the whole reason we moved forward with it anyway, because we just didn't want to wait anymore. It was fine. Yeah. But I remember Brian saying this about the mandap, and I remember you saying it, and I remember our planner saying it. Keep a couple of things big because it's going to make you feel like you're getting married.
Facts.
And to this day, when I look at those photos, none of those photos focus on the fact that there were 25 people. It looks like a packed house. Yeah. You wouldn't have known. No one would know until I pointed it out. And the mandap is just absolutely like this huge centerpiece. And we look happy that we're getting married. And ultimately, now, 4 years later, and with 1.5 kids and, you know, whatever.
It's
like, that's still what we look at, is that day with a lot of happiness and a lot of
so many
joy.
memories right there.
And people who showed up online when they couldn't show up in person, and who still celebrated with us a year later, and whose like celebrations got dragged down for a long time because everyone was like, you know, the new bride phase got to go for 2 years versus going for like 6 months and then being done with it, you know, because people didn't get to meet us until like meet the other person's family until a little bit later. So I think at the end of the day, yeah, I'd 100% do it again. I'd 100% do it again. And if it worked out the same way where it was still 25 people, I would still do it because it was amazing.
I'm glad you said that because a lot of people won't.
Yeah, I mean, I think it saved money in some of the ways that like we wouldn't have expected to. Like the wedding was smaller, the reception was smaller. We saved some money there. And that was a concern because, you know, Indian weddings can get really out of hand really quickly.
Right.
And the pressure exists whenever you go to these big weddings and bigger and bigger and bigger. And
it's like, is mine
I didn't have fireworks.
better than yours?
Yeah,
and it's like, you
exactly.
know, keeping it with the Joneses at that point.
Exactly.
And that's the basis of the whole business itself, right? That's what, as a vendor, we always talk about, me and other vendors, it's always about bigger and better, right? While they spent an X amount, watch their cousins are going to come back to us and spend a little bit more. And their friends are going to come back to us and spend a little bit more because they want to outdo each other. It's a buddy of mine told me this conversation years ago, and I always think about it. It's 2 Indian people living in a certain town, right? They're living across the street from each other. So he buys a Benz, he buys a Benz, right? He buys a Tesla, he buys a Tesla. He expenses, makes his deck bigger, he makes his deck bigger. He gets a boat, he gets a boat. So they're constantly going back and forth with each other. They fail to realize the impact that these two are having on all the other neighbors looking in. That's so true. That is so true. Right? So we're so consumed with just being better than each other that we don't forget that we're also the other people are looking at us. And what are they thinking of these two people? These two Indian people versus the outside world looking at. That plays a big role on conceptions. Yeah. On the Indian community itself. And I talk about that a lot. Yeah. You know, a couple of my guests already came on. They said, Jay, the podcast wasn't one, it was about connecting, just chopping it up, but it was also therapeutic. Because I talk about stuff that people don't usually talk about. Yeah. You know, the impact that the wedding industry has on the bride, for example. It's pressure. It really is. The pressure on you delivering something for your family, right? The vision that you have, do you want to create your vision? Because you were thinking about your wedding for years, right? As a teenager to where you are now. Sanjeev, not so much. I think, I don't know. I feel like the bridezilla in this situation may have actually been him, but we're I still make fun of him for it. But I think you're absolutely right. I mean, you have this concept in mind for so long that, you know, when it comes down to the execution, there is so much pressure. I remember having a total meltdown 5 days before our reception because I realized, and this is such a dumb problem because I actually loved the gown that I wore. The gown that I wore was not name brand. It was like $150 off the streets of Hyderabad that my aunt just happened to find, and I loved the way it looked, and so I just said, buy it. It's a gown, it's beautiful, it's a color I want. I don't really care if it's not a Manish Malhotra or a Taranjali, like I don't care. And clearly that wasn't important to you. But as we got to it, I was like, oh my gosh, should it have been important to me? And so, and I'm looking, and my brother's also planning his wedding, and I'm looking at the outfits that everyone's choosing from these boutiques and that are maybe not name brand, but a little fancier than what I was thinking. And I remember having a meltdown because the gown had work on the front and it didn't go all the way around. And I thought that was going to tell the guest, like if I spun when we were dancing, the guests would see the back of the outfit and see that the work didn't go all the way around and then realize she didn't spend thousands of dollars on this outfit. Gotcha. And it was such a weird, small thing to worry about. At the end of the day, I wore the gown. I love the gown. It's still like every time I look at it, I still kind of worship the gown. It's still a beautiful thing. But I do remember having that. And I just remember thinking like, but what if everybody thinks we didn't put the money in, like thought we were cheap? Or, you know, what if that comes back to my parents and they think like my parents just didn't want to spend the money, even though they were willing to spend whatever they needed to. You know, it was... That's crazy how that plays a big role. Like it's so wild. And even going to weddings, you look at outfits and sometimes you're like, well, you can tell that's,
a name brand designer outfit,
or
this is a boutique or whatever.
Though?
But yeah,
I'm not a believer in that.
It was never important to me. And then that week, I don't know what happened. And I remember my makeup artist said, well, it looks a little bit like a sister of a groom outfit, not necessarily the bride outfit.
Okay.
She took it back the day that she saw me wear it with the jewelry and the hair and everything together. She's like, I see your vision now and it makes sense and you actually nailed it.
Right.
But it's when you hear it going into it, you're like, oh my God, what if I was wrong? What if what if I have the wrong values, and what if it's I'm too simple for this or something? And how does that look? And,
you got to make it your own.
Yeah. 100%. And now I look back and I'm like, I love the fact that my wedding outfit wasn't red. Or any variation of red. It was like a pink, it was like a watermelon pink.
Yeah.
And I love the photos in all of them. And I love the reception photos. I love the vendors, everything about it. I'm like, there's really no regrets. And I was telling Sanjeev this morning, I'm like, I don't know what I would change. I think I would maybe add in a couple other details, but it's not like I regret that I didn't have them.
Yeah.
I think we nailed everything we wanted to nail.
100%.
And so that's all that matters at the end of the day.
And that sucks because the whole concept of other people, right? Like, I should have bought this because they're going to think that I didn't spend money on it. So now you're pressured into spending something that you didn't want to spend on something you didn't want in the first place.
Yeah.
But then where does it end?
Oh, absolutely.
It doesn't end.
There's
no ceiling to it. It's just constantly getting more and more and more. I'll give you a great example. When I got married, during my reception, everyone's like, Jay's going to wear a tuxedo. Jay's going to wear something fancy because he loves his suits.
Yeah.
No. You
didn't wear a suit.
I wore an Indian outfit. I got it off the rack, one of the stores on Oak Tree Road.
Yeah.
I looked at it. I fell in love with it. It had some design on the front. I wore my black shoes. Done. I wore a black Indian outfit.
I love that though. Then if it feels
cool.
like you, then that's like 100%. How much more comfortable you're going to be, right?
So much.
That gown to this day in all those photos, I'm not looking. I'm not like, oh, I'm pulling this or I'm pulling this because it weighs too much or I can't dance. I think back and I'm like, I danced whenever I could dance.
Yeah.
It was easy to move in. It was beautiful. It came out great in the photos. I still feel like it caught the vibe.
Yeah.
It looked really nice with all the decor. Everything came together. So, it's just sometimes the things that we worry about are not things that we need to worry about.
100%.
And I think the one thing that you have to remember going into a wedding in the first place that it's really easy to lose track of is who you are going in and being like, I am not changing that.
Is that the advice you would give to the next bride?
Oh, absolutely. 100% is like, know who you are before you go into this wedding. Because otherwise you're going to end up with something that's totally not you.
Yeah, because you have a certain,
and you have your family
vibe,
and you have everybody
vision.
else's opinions. And, I've had so many friends who've said, I wanted to elope and I ended up with a 6-figure wedding that I'm in debt for. And I kept thinking, why did you go for the 6-figure wedding? And I understand the pressures. I get that. But I think when they haven't spoken up or they haven't figured themselves out enough to go into this to say, oh, I never put the value on this in the first place.
Right.
I'm always okay saying, like the conversation we had about your wedding about, do you want to have 400 people and all your friends, or do you want to have the 200 people and factor in a lot more things with having just your immediate family and your close family and calling it a day? Because
it was the best thing me and my wife ever did.
And I think you guys knew yourselves then too, right? Going into that.
We knew ourselves because we were also older.
Yeah.
Right? We were also in our 40s, right? Brides now who are in their mid-20s, early 30s, they still have that perception on bigger and better. Instagram ready, right? Highlight reels. There's a lot of photographers who I know, they have that package part that have that thing, that have the
content
demo.
creation part now is like a line item now on weddings.
So because now if you get married on a Saturday, we'll start posting by Monday. Monday, Tuesday, ready, get ready, get ready, get ready, get ready. Yeah. Is it necessary? I don't know. I can't say yes, I can't say no.
Yeah.
And being a content creator myself,
I agree with you. I mean, so I know, like I've been to a couple of weddings. It was actually one of my favorite weddings because, and this is the key thing, the guests still felt welcome at the end of the day. They still felt warm and taken care of. But I went to a wedding abroad, and I would probably say the wedding was $1 million at least.
Right.
Which is, as you know, quite a bit more than me and Sanjeev's budget. So we were like, oh, this is what it's going to be like. Okay, cool. But they had like fireworks. They had fresh flowers at every event. They had 11 events.
Wow.
Different dress codes for each one. Fresh flowers and fresh mandaps and fresh decor at each one.
Where was this?
Thailand.
Nice.
And it was absolutely amazing. It was like one of the best weddings I've ever been to.
It's a great experience, right?
It was an experience, but I think there's a difference between providing an experience where your guests feel welcome and you get all this like content, because the bride was a content creator and a close friend of mine. There's a difference between providing that and still getting all the content that you need versus doing a wedding for the content and not for the guests that you're trying to throw it for.
Right.
Because then at the end of the day, yeah, you have the beautiful pictures and stuff, but everyone's going to hate you because they weren't fed properly in the first place. Nobody said welcome to them. No one like made them feel like part of the family when they traveled all the way to see you or whatever. So I think that the vibe and the approach that you take, you can be as glamorous and put as much money as you want into it, but at the end of the day, your guests have to still feel like they're part of your family when they show up.
100%. I mean, they're going out of their way to come there, right?
Exactly.
Days off.
Money,
flights, clothes,
probably new clothes because nobody wears the same thing anymore. Yeah,
right. So, I mean, they're putting a financial strain on the guests to make their way there, right? And if you're too busy taking pictures and just playing the part of the bride and groom, if you're not personal or personable with your guests, then who are the guests there for?
Yeah.
Is it just to be part of a show? Or is it to be part of your particular memories? Or is the wedding part of their memories? You get it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Me going to a wedding, I'm going there for the experience. But I'm going there as a guest.
Yeah.
I'm never going to see the bride and groom. They're going to be all of you over there. Hey, what's up? How you doing? How you doing? Peace. That was it. But no hugs and kisses, this and that. I'm old school. I'm 45 years old. I've been in the wedding industry since I was 21 full time. I'm old school though, right? Yeah. I've seen it all. I've seen the transition from the big 500-600 people weddings that place politics also, because your uncle's friends, your uncle's friends' friends. They met you when you were 2 years old. You got to invite them to your wedding.
Yeah.
To the micro weddings right after COVID, to what it is now. It kind of died down, but it also got better, right? Micro weddings, 75 people at a time. Now that went to 150. That 150 to 200 range, that's what you're going to see. Mm-hmm. You're not going to see anything above that, not as much as you think.
Yeah.
Right? 200 people. I think that's what the 400 guest client wanted, but they never could get it.
Yeah.
Because mom and dad also played a big role in it.
Yeah.
Now it's like 200 people, friends and family. You're good. You know everybody. You have time to go visit with everyone, take pictures, share these memories, create these wonderful memories, right? Without even worrying about the bank at that point.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, our reception turned out that way. Yeah. Like accidentally or intentionally, however it worked out. It was 2021 between COVID waves, which we were very lucky for because nobody got sick. And it was in October, and it was 150 to 175 people ended up showing up, even though there was, I think, 300 or 400 invited. And I can still name everybody that came.
That's the best part.
Like I can see them because I actually said hello. And there's photos of all of them. And so when you look at that, I'm like, okay, it was intimate enough that I remember those moments with that. And that ultimately that is going to matter more to me at the end of the day. And
right.
It was worth it. Like, so
that question I asked you, would you do it again? I feel like you would do it again because of the number of guests that you had. It was personal. Yeah. If it was 400 or 500 people, probably wouldn't want to do it again because now it's a production.
Yeah.
I was like, no, I got to please A, B, C, and X, Y, Z. Versus another event that's 200 people, you're pleasing yourself and your husband.
Yeah.
And that's it.
That's it. At the end of the day, it comes down to you, which, tying back to the love stories, like end game, right? You're looking at the end game at the end of it. And also the other piece of advice that I always tell my friends that are going into weddings is like a wedding isn't what makes a marriage. So you need to
100%.
You need to look beyond what that weekend is.
The wedding is just a door.
Like. The wedding is the door, but you have a lifetime length of a hallway that you have to go down with this person. And ideally that you're going to go down with this person, and you better be in it for the long haul because there's going to be ugly moments too, and you have to be able to get through it. So the wedding is beautiful and as wonderful as it's going to be, and I hope it is.
Yeah.
That's not what's going to make your marriage.
I read in Modern Bride magazine a while ago, the bigger the wedding, the more money you're spending on it. The longevity of your wedding, it's the marriage itself, narrows.
I wouldn't be surprised by that. It's not really.
It's crazy, right?
It's wild, but I also think that it's the same thing with fraternities and sororities and hazing.
Okay.
The more that it's been proven multiple times in different situations, the more someone's bullied or the more that somebody is, the more someone feels like they've invested, whether it's time, money, humiliation, anything like their own pride, whatever, the harder it is for them to get out, the more loyalty they feel to stay in.
Okay.
And so even with those marriages, even though they're shorter, I can see how they could become more contentious quickly.
Okay.
Because you've invested so much in it. And then you're kind of just in it to be in it because you have that phase where you're like, we put so much in, we put so much money and time and whatever in. And then it also adds more stress to it versus, taking all of that away and seeing how it goes.
Therapeutic, remember I told you?
Huh?
The podcast itself is...
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's totally, it is therapeutic. And, I think it's totally therapeutic. I mean, I think it's funny, I have never been asked, would you do it again? And then when you think about the pandemic and you think about how much everybody went through and you think with our wedding, how much stuff we didn't get that we really wanted.
Yeah.
And now 4 or 5 years later, would I still want it? Or would I still do it the same way again? Even if it was like that, and would I be okay with it?
Would you?
I think I'm still okay with it.
Nice.
I don't walk around with regret that we lost the wedding of our dreams.
That's a breath of fresh air right there. I just said that. Good job.
I think I don't walk around feeling bad that we lost that dream wedding because ultimately everybody was safe. Everyone still showed up in whatever way they could. The people that needed to get us married got us married. And we've built a great life. So, is there really anything can I complain about it? Do I even have a right to complain at this point if life has turned out really well? I think it's been fine.
Good job. Good job on that. So you have 2 books, right? Love Story. You got the 3rd one that's going to be coming out pretty soon. Mm-hmm. When can we expect that? 2025, most likely. It's still yet to be confirmed, but then I also have a children's book coming out. Oh, nice.
So yeah, I just signed in September with HarperCollins. So I just finished, thank you. I just finished that book and turned it in, some of the edits yesterday. So I have a children's book coming, and then I'm working on a women's fiction book that I'm trying to get done before this baby shows up. So fingers crossed. We'll see how that works.
The baby's coming in February, you said, right?
The baby's coming in February.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, that's our time. It goes by quickly, right?
I know.
It does.
It does.
Do you want to share any of your tags, your social media platforms, all that good stuff?
If anything I said interests you, please feel free to follow me at Annika Sharma. I am also the founder of That Desi Spark podcast, which was recently acquired this past spring. And the soon-to-be founder, it hasn't been announced yet, of a motherhood platform. So, just feel free to follow along and keep in touch. Congratulations on all your success. Thank you. I'm so proud of you. Yeah, I'm so proud of you. Look at what you've been doing with the last couple of years. This is insane. Thank you. Appreciate it. We'll talk more. We're going to come back for round 2, okay? Oh, 100%. Guys, that's our time. Thank you for joining us on another episode of the Jay Rana Show, filmed here exclusively by Flexworks, filmed here at the Titan Union. For more information, you can also DM me anytime. Guys, and as always, I'll see you on my dance floor. Peace.